I knew intellectually that someday my dad would die, but there was a part of me that just believed that through his willpower, he'd be able to go on for at least some long time in the future. My little daughter, when she was 5 years of age, we were out planting beans in the garden, and she said, "Daddy, what does it mean to be a human being?" and trying to work on what's going on in her mind, pulling it together, I gave her a 2 or 3 minute explanation of what it meant to be a human being. And within that, one of the things I recognize is that we all die. That's what it means to be human beings, doesn't it? That our existence doesn't go on here forever. And that we realize that death is a part of the reality that we face here on this earth. Part of being a human being means that we're not God, and that God alone is immortal. And that we get as part of our heritage death because of the way things are in this world. So when I had to share with her what it meant to be a human being, I explained to her that. My dad seemed like a Superman. I remember in the wrecking yard, he picked up a 350 block, and put it on a shelf because he was angry. In case you don't know, that's big. He was, of course, full of adrenaline and paid for it the next day, but still, I believed my dad to be Superman. And in my mind, he could do anything. So when he decided that he was going to live to be 100, I expected that. And figured that someday he would die. But in the way distant future. Proverbs 27:1 says, "Don't boast about tomorrow, for you don't know what a day may bring." Psalm 90:12 says it this way, "Teach us to number our days aright, that we may gain a heart of wisdom." I paraphrase it like this. Life will not always go this way for us. We need to use our time wisely. It's not going to happen just like we see it. It's not going to continue like this. Life changes. And quite honestly, this earth isn't going to continue the way it is either, is it? Life is not going to go on like this forever. That's part of what we face as reality. And right now, I kind of think that's a good thing. Because I don't want life to continue like this. I don't want to continue with loved ones that I don't see, that I'm not with. I want life to be changed. My dad shared with me his desire for life. And I look forward to say, I want to invest my time today. Don't you? First lesson I learned from the graveside of my father was that we won't go on forever. We're mortal. And we have to live life with that zest and that reality that we count each moment. There's a Tim McGraw song, you know what I'm talking about? If we could live like we're dying, how would we treat life? Maybe we should be living like we're dying. Because I can tell you in those 3 months, the intensity of the time I spent with my dad was incredible. Probably more intense and more one-on-one and more personal than all the years that I've been with him before. Well, there were moments before, but in a 3-month time period, that 3-month time period was extremely significant of where I felt I went with my dad. It caused me to realize that life is something that God does and gives and does for us. It's like we're a glove that he slips on, and he's instilling us with his presence to have life today. So I don't want to cheapen life. I don't want to waste it. None of the moments between the time my dad was diagnosed with cancer until he died were insignificant. I looked for each moment I could spend it. I wanted to recognize the lesson that we're all born. A second thing that I recognized, my dad collected tools. All kinds of tools. Now, my dad wasn't very educated. I think he had a 5th grade education. My dad did incredible things with a 5th grade education. He worked mostly as a tradesman in welding. He worked at Hanford Atomic Energy Plant and started doing welds for X-rays. And they passed X-rays so that nothing escaped. And so he trained others to do that. And before long, he was teaching in a college to do that. He taught himself draftsmanship and the refrigerator trade and started installing refrigeration in large warehouses. My dad had multiple jobs as I look back. He was a barber, he owned a gas station, he owned and managed a farm, My dad worked as a wrecking yard owner and hauled junk. My dad did almost anything you can think of. Painted custom cars, rehauled cars. And I look back and say, he had incredible willpower to do it. We dug a well in the house where we lived, dug it by hand, encased it, dropped it down. My dad built the shop, my dad and my brothers. I remember the 2x6s, the 2-inch well, a 4-bay garage, 2 inches at a time, because they were free. He could get the milling at the mill. And so he would haul millings, and we would use 50-pound cases of nails at a time, getting those little millings around. The shop was like a rock by the time he was done.